appreciate people coming tonight. We're very excited about the topic. We've been looking at climate issues for several years now. We at one point built the council, the Climate Change Economy Council, to look, instead of just looking at the huge moral challenge before civilization, we were really interested in thinking about how Vermont can shift and innovate in ways that can be successful. So how do we look at ways we work together rather than ways we can be paralyzed by the potential cascading catastrophic effects that could come from climate change? We have a moral imperative, but we also have opportunities. So we've run 3 different climate summits for Vermont. We brought major investors from around the country and leaders in innovation in businesses that shared ways that they're changing the way they do business. And we had people like Danny Kennedy say that addressing climate change, if you think of it in terms of opportunity to build solutions in the business community, it's one of the greatest economic opportunities in world history because of the shifts that are going to happen and the market share in renewable technologies, in low carbon technologies, in agricultural practices. So how does Vermont look into those topics and think about ways to address climate change and be proactive at the same time we build jobs and success for the future of our communities? And when we started thinking that way, we started looking at businesses and farms and town halls. And when you start thinking about it, you see people are all changing their light bulbs. People are all looking at efficiencies. In fact, a lot of people are investing in solar and other technologies. And business practices are moving right in front of us. Meanwhile, we're creating all kinds of clean energy jobs. So we've worked to pull this together in a fulcral way. And VCRD's hosting this session tonight, but we're really hosting it for the Climate Economy Action Team, which is a nonpartisan group that shares aspirational messaging in the State House and in other places to advance Vermont's response to climate in ways that also help our economy be successful in the future. Fundamentally, we don't think there's 2 sides or there's a negative side to advancing economic opportunities in this sector. We think that it's a bridge that can bring people together across the spectrum politically, and that it's a way that we need to move forward in a time that has become very polarized around so many different issues. So we bring this conversation around the state with a lot of respect for local initiative, for local leadership, for the diversity of businesses. And we're really here in the kingdom to celebrate and learn from some of the progressive business models that are out there in the kingdom today. So it's a great honor to be here. It's great to be working with John Copans, who's the director of the Model Communities Program. He's also leading a Climate Catalyst group, which are key leaders at the town and regional level all across the state that are devising projects to advance low carbon solutions to the future. Everything from composting and recycling to new energy development and efficiencies. So John, I'll turn it over to you and the panel and you can introduce them, but very excited to be here in the Northeast Kingdom tonight. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Paul. So as I described before, really the feature for tonight is we've got some great speakers, and we're going to have sort of a panel discussion of our 4 speakers, and that should last probably about a half an hour, and then we'll sort of open it up for a little more of an open forum. So what I'm going to do is give our panelists an opportunity to quickly, with one or 2 minutes, just quickly introduce themselves, and then we're going to get into further conversation. So I'm looking across my screen, and I think we will start with Dylan. Dylan Kinsey is a green builder from Albany. We made the mistake of saying Craftsbury. We should have known better. He's from Albany, Vermont, and really the only certified passive house builder up in the Northeast Kingdom. Does amazing work. And so Dylan, you want to introduce yourself, folks?
Sure, yeah, thanks, John. Glad to be here. Again, I'm Dylan Kinsey. I own and operate Kinsey Construction out of my home in South Albany, Vermont. We specialize in super insulated buildings, zero net energy buildings, usually all electric, passive house, pretty good house, which is another cool movement out of Maine. That's kind of a non-performance standard or a performance standard. I started learning how to build these buildings about 6 or 7 years ago as the natural next step for, you know, where we thought we needed to go, and tons of opportunity. So, you know, in my line of work, you know, as many people know, about a third of the world's energy is consumed by buildings, and then carbon is a huge piece of that as well. Even more so, carbon in the production of the building of the building itself front loads a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, and then the operational carbon associated with the building. So lots of opportunity for us as tradespeople, and we also have a huge labor shortage in the trades across the board that we can use to leverage our state and our corner of the state and our country to take some big steps toward that, and that's a big slice of the pie. So I'm really happy to be part of that and glad to be here.
Great, thanks, Dylan. Next, I want to introduce Judy Gear, and I have a confession to make, which is I didn't know that Judy was a former Olympian until like just this last year. So an athlete at the most elite level, and now an entrepreneur at the most elite level too, when you look at Concept 2 Rowing and the Craftsbury Outdoor Center. So Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, John. I'm a director of the Craftsbury Outdoor Center, which is a nonprofit, and our mission has 3 prongs. One is about participation and excellence in lifelong sports, so providing access to sport and then also nurturing excellence in our Olympic development program. Second prong is to use and teach sustainable practices, and the third part is stewardship of land and water that all of us recreate on. So yeah, you could say that's a weird combination of things to have in your mission, but I think they're all really important, and that's what we have. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. I want to introduce Mateo Kaler from Jasper Hill Cheese. You know, I mean, what an incredible story they've had. Those cheese caves, that herd, and the amazing and delicious. I've got some in my fridge right now. Jasper Hill cheese. So Mateo.
Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here, and thank everybody. Thank you all for coming out to participate in a discussion. I started Jasper Hill Farm with my brother Andy 19 years ago this week, and we started the business really with a mission to redefine what it means to milk cows and live in the Northeast Kingdom. Our mission really is built around conservation of the working landscape, and we've added to that over the years. We're really intent on building livable communities, and we do that by creating high value products, which we put into a pipeline that we built to marketplaces where there's capital, which we essentially extract from places where there's plenty of it and redistribute it in ways that commodity markets don't, in an effort really to enable a different set of practices on farms that are focused really on the conservation of our soil and water resources. It's a lot more to it. We see cheese as really a lever that we're yanking on to create social change here within a 15-mile radius of Greensboro. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff in the works, and look forward to sharing more with you.
Awesome. And last but not least, we have Professor Janelle Hanrahan from Northern Vermont University, and like a reminder of how important that institution is to the Kingdom, NVU, and the work that Janelle does both as a professor, but also with this sort of, I think it's called the climate consensus work on campus, working with students that I think will be really interesting to hear about. So it's great to have you, Janelle.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so I'm Janelle Hanrahan, professor of atmospheric sciences here at Northern Vermont University. And thanks for that plug. I agree. I think we're important. We're doing some amazing things here. So as soon as COVID is over, come visit us if you haven't been here in a while. So I teach most of our climatology classes, kind of intro to climatology courses up through some of the upper level courses for our students who are graduating with degrees in atmospheric sciences. And I'm also director of the group called the Climate Consensus, which is a department-led climate change outreach group, which we started back in 2014. And this is just our attempt at trying to get students, upcoming scientists, to understand that it is at least partially their job to be engaging with the community and to be involved with conversations like this, particularly on the topic of climate change. And then professionally, some of my research experience is doing climate modeling and trying to understand how large-scale climate change is going to manifest itself in small-scale, like weather events, so things like extreme precipitation, drought, and trying to get a good handle on that. And I admit I'm a bit outside of my comfort zone here, and I love it because I'm so busy being immersed in the science, and everything seems so abstract and you know, it's really nice to be able to be learning from some of the business leaders in the area to hear more about solutions, because I feel like sometimes my focus is so much on the big picture, which is a big problem. So I really like to hear what's happening at the local level. So thank you.
Great. All right, I'm going to get right into some questions. And the first one is pretty fundamental. And maybe we'll go in reverse order. So just to help you all. So Janelle, if you want to take a first crack at this, you know, how is climate change impacting your work? How does that change your role as a professor or for you all as business people? And what are you doing sort of to sort of seize upon that opportunity or to respond to it if it's a challenge as well?
Sure. So for me professionally, climate change is almost everything that I do. From my own research to the outreach work. And that was in no way my intent when I kind of entered this field. I came into atmospheric sciences because I really liked math and physics and computer science. And I started out by studying the Great Lakes water levels because I was going to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And I didn't really know where I stood on climate change at the time. Granted, this is like 15 years ago, and I didn't really understand a lot about it. And I actually started seeing the climate change signal in my own data set in the Great Lakes water levels. And so that really piqued my interest, and I started exploring it more, and then ended up going up to Alberta, Canada, and worked for the city of Edmonton up there where they were redesigning their hydrologic infrastructure under climate change. So we were creating future climate data, precipitation data, so they could use that to inform their decisions. And then in the time that I've been here, again, I teach all about it in the classroom. But I think for me, kind of on a personal level, I will say, especially when I became a mom, my son is going to be 7 very soon here. And when he was first born, I will say that that was really the first time for me that these climate change projections going out to the year 2100 became way less abstract, because I suddenly started looking at his lifetime. And oftentimes people don't realize that the climate changes that we've seen already, more intense storms, more extreme precipitation, flooding, sea level rise, all these things, is not actually climate change. This is the very, very, very beginning of climate change. And young people like my son and even my students today, who are pretty young themselves, are the ones that are going to be actually living through the true climate changes, which for me as a scientist and a mom is pretty frightening. And so I will say that climate change has everything to do with everything I do, both professionally, but also personally. And that's where we're trying to bridge this gap kind of between the professional community and those that study climate science on a regular basis and everybody else, and those who can really make a difference, because I think that's really how we're gonna do something about it.
Mateo?
Well, you know, pre-COVID, climate change was probably the biggest conversation happening inside our business. And I think that it's going to be the biggest, most important conversation happening, as the pandemic winds down, not just for us, but for the human race. We see, if you look at agriculture is responsible for 30% of carbon emissions. Agriculture has to be part of the solution to climate change. We're committed to really trying to lead from the front, in the sense that we understand that there's an opportunity by using ruminants through grazing to sequester huge amounts of carbon. We're going through a visioning process right now as a company. It's a company-wide effort, and I had a session today with a bunch of our crew. So I think last count, there are 117 people that work at Jasper Hill now. We've gotten to a place where we have this critical mass and the ability to really create impact. We're starting to see it, around us. We're not this wildly profitable business, but there are huge waves of cash that flow in and out of our business. And we have the opportunity to direct these flows of capital in strategic ways. And over the course of the next 10 years, we're really looking at doubling down on our environmental footprint. We've got 150 kW solar array in Craftsbury, and we're putting another 150 kW solar array on the new barn we're going to be building at Jasper Hill this year, which essentially means that 100% of our electrical load will be, solar. But the biggest, contributors to our carbon footprint are really coming from cows. And, as we move forward, we're starting to measure carbon in our soils and working on figuring out ways in which we can build soil and sequester carbon in a measurable way moving forward. We see really this opportunity as a way of responding at some scale within the context of our community to the challenges that we're up against collectively. And we basically set ourselves a goal of being completely carbon neutral by 2031. So essentially, no fossil fuels, no hydrocarbons being burned within both our production of cheese or the transportation, the tractors, all that's basically moving to electric energy that's produced on the farm, or biogas that's produced on the farms. So it's kind of where we're heading. And it's a heavy lift, but when I look around, same thing, I have young kids who really are holding our generation responsible for creating change now. And I'm really hopeful and inspired because of the generation that's coming up, behind us, and the conviction that I feel, when I speak to my kids. It's been really inspiring.
Thank you. How about at Craftsbury Outdoor Center, Judy?
Yeah, well, so as a Nordic ski center, we've been quite aware of changes in the climate over the years. And yet our mission is providing access to lifelong sports, but our mission is also sustainable practices. So our challenge has been to sort of extend that season, but do it sustainably. And so we started, I guess we turned it into a nonprofit in 2008, and in 2011, we purchased 3 snow guns. So it's, again, way smaller than a downhill area, but it's a snow gun. It uses energy. it makes snow. And that, you know, it enables you to sort of guarantee a season. And we'd like that season to start, you know, around Thanksgiving and continue until people want to ski into March. That keeps our employees working. It continues to bring business to the town, the stores, lodging. So sort of, and it provides access. It achieves our mission. So we have a lot of kids programming, especially that really sort of depends on having snow to ski on. So yeah, so the challenge has been, okay, let's clean up our act. When we purchased the center, it was using a lot of fossil fuel, and we've been gradually getting rid of it so that all of our heating is now done without fossil fuel. We've got we've got some heat pumps, we've got some pellet stoves, we've got sort of a funky system for the east side of the road that uses waste heat from our snowmaking generator, combines it with heat pump and some highly efficient wood-fired boilers. And we can harvest a lot of that wood sustainably on our own property, or we can purchase it from people in the area who are harvesting sustainably. So we've been able to sort of keep the carbon footprint either improving or at least not getting worse, even though we've been doing more things and serving more people. So that's progress. Now, those snow guns were only helpful as long as we still had cold enough temperatures before Thanksgiving to make snow. And I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, sort of joking to my husband, yeah, I guess one of these years we'll have a November when it doesn't get cold enough to make snow. And well, it happened like almost right away. So that's a bummer. So at about the same time, we began working with a UVM professor and grad student studying the idea of storing snow over the summer. And this is not new. It happens in Europe, especially in Scandinavia. It's the same technology that ice houses used in the old days, you know, just cut a bunch of ice in the winter and dump a lot of sawdust over it, and it'll keep things cold for an amazingly long time. So we've been working with the UVM professor and student. This is now our third snow pile, I think, and it's there and it's covered with sawdust. The great thing about this is we can use a much more efficient snow gun. We can use it in the coldest temperatures of the winter. So we can save energy on making snow, make it at the best time, cover it with sawdust. And if you make, I mean, we pretty much have to plan on losing 30, 40% of it, depending on the temperatures, but then we know that we'll have snow. So yeah, I think for us, it's an interesting balance of trying to maintain skiing for people, but it takes a bit of work to do it. And so then making sure that everything else we do is done as, you know, sustainably as possible, so that our carbon footprint is coming down, if anything. So
that's a powerful story of adaptation, like having to just constantly figure out new ways to sustain your season as the conditions change. Thanks, Judy. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll borrow Janelle's line here in that, you know, it's affected me in every way possible. It changed how I think about buildings, how I approach building buildings, how I, you know, not just the building as a final result, ready to move in, but how we put it together, where the materials come from. And of course, right now we're experiencing a boom in construction, a boom toward we hope the end of a pandemic with a gigantic labor shortage. So it's really, really crazy and challenging right now. There's a lot to do out there. So I could just go on for an hour about like how this has affected us. I think the thing I'll focus on first is the labor shortage, which I think there's a lot of room for improvement and getting more people interested in the trades, and because there's a lot of stuff to do, and we have a huge impact through the kind of work that I do. So we need to invite more people in to do it. I guess the thing that I think most about every day is how can we put these buildings together quickly with materials that don't travel far to get here. How can we, and there are builders throughout the state that are doing a slightly better job than we are. Some of that's client driven, some of it is, not all of it's in my hands, but there are lots of opportunities to draw from local material pools to keep the impact of materials traveling from a long distance to get here. Surprisingly, one of the worst dents to the environment while we build a home is, does anybody want to take a guess? It's actually people driving back and forth to the job site. And that's a real bummer, because in Vermont, we do a lot of driving. And so it really matters how quickly how efficiently designed they are, how quickly they can be assembled and put together so we can move on to the next one. And I mean that, they kind of, a residential building really ought to be small, probably all electric, super insulated. And then we're done with it soon, hopefully. So we can move on and build another one and not, because we're trying to create a space for a family. And I mean, that's the size of building that I'm concerned with. And so if you think about that as a environmental dent per capita or per person, you kind of want to get through a building in 6 or 7 months for a family of 4. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. Endless ways that it has impacted us in every way. I'll stop there before I keep going.
Well, let me ask a quick follow-up to you, and then we'll continue down the line, which is, I mean, boy, that's an eye-opener to me, right? I think about when you build a house, it's about the energy use over time, right? I don't think about the driving to and from the work site and the construction. So that essentially you have to account for those things and come up with systems to account for those things and talk to your clients about those decisions, I guess, as well. I'm curious, like, how do you sort of account for those things? What kind of system do you have? And then how do you talk to your clients? And are they driving some of this as customers? How does that conversation go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, because affordability comes into the conversation. Obviously, there's always a budget. Clearly, everybody has a budget. And some of the things that we want to do to make the building of the building quick and efficient, and the end result an ideal, match dollar for efficiency, it's just tough to get people what they want and also get the envelope right without it going over budget and staying within a reasonable amount of time, time frame. So some of it's client driven. Most people really care about that stuff that we work for, and most of the projects we go for are what I'd say reasonable sized. 1,500 square feet for a family of 4 really is kind of what the sort of a target that I think is kind of reasonable. So those are the types of projects that we're most interested in go after. How do you, and picking projects that are close to where me and my crew live. So not driving an hour to get there. That's something I consider. So my work radius, I'm asking a lot of the Northeast Kingdom to provide me with the kinds of projects I'm interested in, that I think make a big impact, and that we get jazzed about as building scientists and builders, and also not have them too far away, and also have clients that get all this stuff. And actually clients are great, because people are really savvy and they totally know what's up now for the most part. So that's not usually a challenge, but it's getting all these things put together. You need a really good designer. You really need a really good architect to pull all these pieces together, because it's pretty complex. But
how about you, Judy, in terms of, like, for people who ski at Craftsbury or come to recreate there, are they asking these questions, and are they interested in the sustainability?
I mean, I'm going to go to the transportation issue first, because that is a big issue for us too. When the skiing's good, people are coming from all around, at least Northern Vermont. I mean, this year they couldn't come from other states. So we do have EV charging stations, and we talk about those and let people know. We are really hoping that, you can come from Chittenden County over here and charge up and go back home again. That works now. So that's a good thing. We'd like to do more of that. Until this year, we were encouraging carpooling. This year was a little bit of a step backward that way, because we couldn't, and we did not want to encourage carpooling. So, there were things that went backwards this year, I have to say, because of the pandemic. I mean, business in general went backwards. Carpooling wasn't an option. We had to use a lot more takeout containers. You couldn't bring your own coffee mug. There were a lot of issues like that this year, and we haven't quite gotten to the point of quantifying the effect that those had on on things. But yeah, I think that, I mean, what we hope, given that our mission is use and teach sustainable practices, we're trying to model good things and good behavior and offer tours of our energy efficient buildings and tell people they can bring their own coffee mug and that we have EV chargers, you know, things like that. And I think there's a lot of people who care about that a lot. And hopefully we're having an effect that way.
Well, and I just shared it in chat, but I want to give a shout out. Like, you have an energy scorecard right on your webpage that sort of gives that pie chart of where the energy uses are. And I assume for you, there's a little bit of an accountability component to that. As you set goals for the center, you're sort of doing some annual updates. That's guiding your work.
Yeah, for sure. And looking like, I mean, our electrical usage is actually going up, but that's good because it means we're using more heat pumps. So, you know, there's things like that going back and forth. We had been, with our solar, we had been generating a larger percentage of what we were using, and now it's a smaller percentage because we're increasing our use of electricity. So we need to look at that. Where can we put more solar? Yeah.
How about you, Mateo, in terms of, like, you talked about, well, two questions there. One is, you've set a goal around sort of net zero, and how do you sort of track your progress? And is this something your customers are asking about, or you're talking to your customers about?
So yes, we are talking about this all the time. Because we exist within a broader conversation in a marketplace that is becoming increasingly hostile towards animal agriculture, like the reality of a consumer who's buying in California in an urban environment, who can't conceive of what our practices are, mean that we need to develop the language to articulate a set of values to differentiate us both from like industrial agriculture on the one hand, but also to challenge the simplistic messaging around, like, you know, almond milk, you know what I mean? And this trend towards away from like meat and dairy. We really believe that like grazing and that grazing and ruminants specifically have a really important role to play. Most of the dairy industry is not heading in the same direction that we are, but our customers care deeply about what we're doing, and what we offer them is really the opportunity to participate in something that is authentic, that's real, and that's impactful, right? We create the opportunity for connection, and in lots of ways, that is what we're selling. That is one of like our intangible like products. You get a great piece of cheese, but you also get to participate in something that matters here. On the carbon front, we're setting these goals, and a lot of the energy that's coming for change is coming actually from our employees, our team, who understand that we can do better, and that there are ways in which we can and must evolve in order to like meet the challenge here. So this is, Jasper Hill is way more than like Mateo and Andy. We have like an incredible, like committed team of like true believers in the mission part. And, we're really driving this like together in a way. We're making it up as we go along, I like to say. So, yeah, this is a work in progress, and we don't pretend to have like all the answers, but we have the capability to figure this stuff out, in real time, and the commitment to resource you know, these really important kind of initiatives within our community and within our business.
That's great. So Janelle, I guess maybe another way to frame this for you is like, as you think about prospective students and attracting them, is the work that you're doing around climate change, like, does that draw people to envy you? And just give us a sense of that maybe.
I'd like to think so. I think it will continue to be the case moving forward. Studies show that young people are the ones that are particularly concerned about climate change. And they're the ones that really want to do something about it. So I think that will probably continue to be the case moving forward. We have already seen a transition just in the time that I've been here to more climate interested students. But I think more importantly, I guess, speaking to the other panelists, it's so exciting for me to hear what you're doing and what you're thinking about, and thinking about this question of, you know, does a typical Vermonter, a typical American care, you know, who's building their house or who's making their cheese? And I guess our goal is to try to get people to care more about those sorts of things, because in order to be, you know, running a business sustainably with climate change in mind, it's expensive, it's hard. You know, there's a lot of hurdles. And if you don't have a population that cares and that wants to buy your product for that purpose, then it doesn't really matter, right? And so I like to think about it as our goal is trying to get more Americans to understand that climate change is caused by us, at least the current change that we're seeing, and that there's something we can do about it, and there's something we need to be doing about it, because only then, when people understand that, will they start to seek out these types of businesses.
You know, I want to, Mary Peters has asked a question in chat that I think is a good and a tough one, which is sort of the affordability question. And often I think we're all grappling with this. Sometimes the green, more carbon-friendly choice doesn't always feel like the affordable or accessible choice for all Vermonters. So I wonder if any of you want to sort of reflect on that and how you think about that.
I'll take that one on.
We got a couple.
I'll fight you.
Okay.
Go for it.
No,
Dylan and then Mateo. Let's go.
Okay, sorry, Mateo. I thought I was gonna have to go first, so I just got ready. Yeah, you know, I grapple with this constantly. And what I've come to is that I think for housing, I want to believe that we have a suite of offerings for every budget range in the state. And I think we have, starting off with Vermont. I don't know if everybody knows about Vermont, but they're specifically designed to take out and decommission mobile homes. As many people may or may not know, mobile homes, the operating costs of a mobile home are astronomical compared to the building I live in. And so that's a great idea. I hope that, I'll also tackle this while we're here, because this is a big one. Energy efficient homes don't have to cost more than normal homes. And so when we say affordability, are we talking about affordability just in being able to build, or we're talking about housing in general? Or I want to believe that good housing, good quality housing is available and accessible to all. And I know that's not necessarily the case, but I still think we have a pretty good, and we need more of, offerings for every budget range, and that better buildings will become the standard. It will take a little time for that to catch on, and it will take time for these buildings to change hands for the market to get the value of the buildings that we're talking about, the kind of buildings that I practice. So yeah, we're always thinking about that. You know, I have certainly bumped into some great folks who wanted to build and thought they could build and couldn't quite pull it off and weren't quite ready yet. And it's really frustrating. And those are often the kinds of projects I'm most interested in, you know? So it's very frustrating for us, and we think about that a lot. And so efficiency in building, efficiency in design, all come down to aid that conversation around affordability. Mateo, it's all you, man.
So I always come back to this like cheap food policy that has driven a lot of like sickness and disease in this country. It costs us a lot to produce our cheese. We pay everybody in our company a living wage. We provide 401k and health insurance to our employees. We we pay twice the commodity price for milk to the suppliers, a living wage for milk. And I've been thinking about this for some years now, but what's been happening in Vermont and in rural America is this transfer of wealth, and it is real equity that has been transferred from the balance sheets of people living in the rural economy to consumers in suburban and urban areas through a pricing mechanism, right? And this is like driven by policy, by our food policy at a federal level. It's been disastrous. It's how Donald Trump got elected, right? Is the, and this is like Democrats and Republicans, it's been the same policy, cheap food. And it's, we are countering that really by creating and extracting value from urban and suburban environments and redistributing it in a way that enables our team and a lot of like ancillary and connected businesses to us to be able to afford to buy our cheese, to eat our cheese, to eat well, to like purchase a home, to raise a family, to save for retirement, right? And that is not the way that like commodity agriculture is moving in our community or almost anywhere across the United States. So what we're trying to do is counter like 40 or 50 years of policy by reinventing an economic model around dairy, in our case, and focusing it on a very tight geography. We're not going to be able to solve this problem like, broadly across the state of Vermont or, and it's true, our cheese is expensive, but so is a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? We think of it as an affordable luxury. For $5, you can get an incredible piece of cheese that provides just an amazing sensory experience and connects you to like real work done by real people in a real place. And honestly, I think it's probably worth it, maybe undervalued.
I don't know about you all, but I haven't had dinner yet, and I'm like tasting it. I'm ready to have the fresh bread and then just spread some of that cheese right on there. Man, oh man. We've got like 13 minutes left. These sessions, we really want to end right at 7:30, but and I want to bring others' voices into this. It always goes so quickly. Before I do that, I see Allison Lowe asked a question that actually gives me an opportunity to make an introduction. In Wheelock, Vermont, there is a powerhouse named Ann Lawless who works not only locally on a bunch of projects, but also works for NeighborWorks and the Heat Squad. And they are sort of on a mission to bring energy efficiency to the housing stock of the Northeast Kingdom. And so, Ann, I just want to give you a chance to sort of introduce yourself and talk a little bit quickly about your work.
Thank you so much, John. It's wonderful to see everybody and participate in this discussion. First of all, NeighborWorks of Western Vermont is an affordable housing organization. It's very similar to our own Rural Edge. The difference, one of the main differences is that the Heat Squad program was generated by NeighborWorks. So it operates now in the Northeast Kingdom counties and 3 other counties in the state. So what we do is we do home energy audits. Not me. I'm just the outreach person. I'm not the technical person who comes to your home and goes top to bottom, inside and out, and comes up with a wonderful multi-page report with recommendations. So the audit is the start of the process, and then we always encourage people, and the audit report, provides additional help and guidance for where the homeowner could go to accomplish some weatherization projects. And right now we have a fantastic program running because we are in partnership with V-Light. And normally a home energy audit costs $150. but for income eligible people, the cost is down to 100. So that can really make a difference. And then of course, for people who want to go on to do a weatherization project, and Michelle can put her hand up here, Michelle McClure from Efficiency Vermont, because we are able to help people access the rebates from Efficiency Vermont. So we're really pushing this program now because we never know how much money we're gonna have, and it's moving fast. And if I could take just a couple more secs, some of our communities have done amazing stuff. And I know there are people here from Peacham. The town of Peacham voted to somehow to subsidize energy audits, or to provide subsidized energy audits for 20 people, 20 Peachamites. And they've 10 or maybe even 11 people have already signed up and got their energy audits in process. Rygate is doing the same thing. NVRH, it's one of our big employers. They're going to be launching a project that's very similar in the fall. And then just a few more secs, if you can allow me. Our program, Heat Squad, started about, I guess it's now 11 years ago. And our program manager, Melanie, down in Rutland, she really pushed the idea of employers using the Heat Squad audit as some kind of a perk. You know, maybe it's a special treat for an employee, maybe it's an incentive, maybe it's a reward, maybe you can give your employee half a day off so that they could actually be there with the auditor in non-COVID times, you know, to really think about how they could change the dynamics in their leaky old farmhouse and make it more energy efficient. So I probably ought to stop there.
Well,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Ann. That's a great overview. You know, if people want one of those audits, how do they, maybe can you type something into chat?
Yeah, I'm gonna just put contact, I'll put my contact information in the chat and a bit more. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks, John.
And do definitely want to say hi to Michelle McCutcheon-Shore from Efficiency Vermont, who's joined us tonight. They are an awesome partner in so much of this. Michelle, I don't know if you want to just say a quick hello.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, great to listen to everyone. I just put in the chat, Efficiency Vermont does have free virtual home energy visits statewide. This is not an audit, so it's not nearly as comprehensive of what Ann is talking about, but it is a good place to start if you're just like, I have no idea where my house is at this point. So I was trying to find the link to put it in the chat when you asked me to speak up. So I'll make sure to throw it in there that people can sign up if they want to. It is only virtual too. It's via camera or phone, depending on what you prefer, but just a quick high level overview of your home if you want to figure out where to start.
Awesome, thanks. You know, I want to sort of be quiet and see if others have things to offer as our audience. Really want to hear from you all. Maybe you've made some changes at your home you want to share with folks, or you've got some questions for our panelists. You could just sort of wave at me or just unmute and start talking, or type into chat. So I wonder if anyone has a question. You know, I thought Jerry asked a good question in chat about sort of cluster housing as an approach that starts to address the transportation issue and maybe some economies of scale. Dylan, I don't know if you had any further thoughts on that.
Yeah, actually, I've been having this conversation a lot lately, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been looking around, poking around the state and elsewhere about co-housing developments. I mean, it's kind of an obvious thing. And full disclosure, you know, my wife and I 3 years ago built a one-hit wonder, super insulated, high-performance house out on the edge of a piece of pasture on family land in South Albany. And it was like the year that we moved into it, I thought, you know, I don't think this is the future of building. I think the future of housing and the answer to the crunch that we have, the lack of housing, this is not necessarily reachable to most folks, not to working class families. And really, it was actually a stretch for us. And I'm a builder, and I had to build a bunch of it. So it's like a tough thing to pull together. So I think co-housing developments, and I know a bunch of people are thinking about it, working on it, designers, builders, non-builders. There's a lot of opportunity there. And I think we need to seize that somehow responsibly. super insulated buildings, you know, they pencil out, and passive house buildings they pencil out a lot better if they're on shared infrastructure. Obviously, economy of scale is huge. So I don't think the future is one-hit wonder houses all over Vermont. I think that's gonna have to end. It's gonna have to be something else.
Other questions or thoughts here? I'm sort of scanning the group. Mabel Houghton. Oh, we can't hear you, so you need to unmute.
I just want to identify myself because I never could get put the chat in, but I'm from Craftsbury and I'm on the Energy Committee in Craftsbury. Sorry to take the time.
Wonderful. A shout out to all of our energy committees. You're such great partners in this work. I mean, and describing what Peacham is doing, so many of our energy committees are real partners in bringing these programs to residents. Other questions? Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Particularly for Judy and Mateo, Judy, you mentioned some things that you're doing that, you know, have negatively impacted your carbon or, you know, impact on the environment because of COVID. But I'm wondering if there's any, because we have found some places where there's some positive overlay there. And I was just wondering if either of you have found that and where those overlays of like health and safety pre-COVID could actually help reduce your carbon impact.
Yeah, I think a positive effect of COVID in general is people not driving so much to work. And I think learning that you can work quite well from home, you know, so I mean, all of our employees, until we were able to open in a limited way, but everybody was working from home. And my real job concept too, we're still all working from home and I don't know when we'll go back. So I think there are definitely some COVID positives there. Yeah.
Same for us.
I mean, I guess what I would say about the negatives and the steps backward that we had to take, now we have the opportunity to go forward again. So it's another opportunity to like address those things. What are the best containers for food that you buy at the snack bar? If you know, and if you can't use your own coffee mug, what's it going to be? And are we recycling as well as possible? And let's talk about carpooling again as soon as we can. So turn it into a positive.
We canceled our travel plans, and as a business, we travel a lot. Our sales team is like, we have an amazing sales team. That's how we built this thing, right? And we would fly to Seattle to have a meeting. That was like the most ridiculous thing ever. And we sold all the cheese this year and we didn't go anywhere. And our quality of life is so much better. And we've canceled all our travel for 2021. And we had the most amazing year that way. Like our quality of life just like improved massively, and our cost went way down. And Zoom, I spent a lot of time on Zoom. Boy, I love Zoom. This is the best thing ever, you know, because it means I get to be here at home with my family, and we can all do our jobs, and our quality of life is just massively improved, but our carbon footprint is like way smaller than it was. We used to in 2019, we spent $250,000 traveling as a business, and that went to zero this past year. So grateful for that realization. And all our customers, you know, none of them wanted to see us in the first place. And I think we've worked them over to the place where they don't expect us to do what we used to do before. And that's going to be huge.
You know, I think that's a powerful, it's not often we hear someone singing the praise of Zoom with such gusto.
God, it's amazing.
As we all gather here on Zoom. So that might be a great note to end on. You know, before I close, I really want to thank Dylan, Mateo, Judy, Janelle, and all of you for gathering tonight for this. You know, when you think about sort of Jasper Hill, Craftsbury Outdoor Center, the houses, NVU, like what does that represent for the kingdom? All of those are important employers, important parts of the identity of the Northeast Kingdom. And to get a sense of where and how all of you are sort of adapting to climate change and thinking forward about where there are opportunities to transform the work that you do in response is really powerful and inspirational. It adds up. Just like all of the things, the choices, just like Mateo talked about, the choices we make for the food we put on our dining room table, it all adds up to something really important. And it's pretty awesome to just hear from all of you about that. So really want to thank you all for doing this, and hope you all can get out and enjoy the twilight this gorgeous evening here in Vermont. So thanks so much, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.